How are you finding it useful?
Do you know, I'm so glad I came. Thank you so much because I've really got, it's making me think in a very different way.
That's good. That's
In
good.
a more, okay, why am I saying things? Hi, Amanda.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, carry on, Helen. You were saying
Yeah.
making
I
you
just,
think differently.
it's just thinking a different way of, so what? What have I got to say? So what is the point of what I've got to say? Why?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's good. I think it's really good. It makes us focus differently, doesn't it? It makes us focus, on, what that core message is and what it is that we have to say that's different from other people. It's
Hmm.
quite difficult to do. I know some people have said to me in the group that they found the exercise of writing out what is their superpower, what makes them unique, etc., very, very hard. And I think it is when you first start doing it. But I think it's don't obsess. If you're still struggling, I know some of you have got back to me, and that's great, but don't obsess over this. It's an exercise to help you all sort of think in that way so that you can then write your press release and when you're pitching, you're really clear on how you want to describe yourself and how you make yourself stand out. You can't hear. Oh, that's strange, Sandy. I wonder why you can't. Can everyone else hear? That's strange, Sandy. You might need to jump out and jump back in again, maybe. Oh, well, she can't hear, of course. Chat.
Might see it in the chat.
Yeah. Hi, Gwen. Can you hear?
I can now, yeah.
You can. So only Sandy can't hear. I wonder if she's seen the message. Well, I'll carry on anyway, and maybe she'll jump out and back in again because I don't really know what else I can do if somebody can't hear.
It must be at her end
Yeah, it must be.
because we can all hear you.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay, well let's move on. So today we're going to look at writing a press release and an email pitch. Oh, hang on. Amanda, it says you've entered the waiting room. That's strange. That's strange. Oh, very, very odd things happening
Did
on
that
Zoom
not happen
today.
last week though? That Amanda had? Did you give Sandy the
Ah,
Zoom last week, and she came in as Amanda or something like that?
aha. Can you hear
Oh,
that? Can you
yeah,
hear now?
everybody's me today.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got two Sandys and two Amandas. So we're really spoilt today. Really spoilt.
I will leave on my computer.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Well, I'm relieved about that. Anyway, I'm relieved we've got everyone. So yeah, we're going to be looking at press releases today. I sent you the template and the sort of guidelines yesterday. Again, don't panic if you haven't been able to look at that or haven't been able to get started. It was really just to give you, you know, an idea of what's coming next and what we're working on. And also to say that, like I was just saying, the superpower stuff and then what makes you unique, that really is so that you can think about, well, how are you going to describe yourself on a press release? Because nailing what that description is really tough, especially if what you do is complicated. Amanda, I know you've been finding this quite hard because it is quite complex. I mean, what we all do is complex, but I would say in your case, and I think Gwen too, just being able to put that into one sentence is quite hard. You will get places where you can go into it in more depth, but you still need to be able to say, like with that press release that I sent you all and showed you last week, which is the burnout one, where she describes herself as workplace burnout specialist and occupational psychologist Rachel Austin. That's the kind of length you need to be able to get it to. And then maybe further down in your quote on your press release, you can go into a bit more depth about what it is you do and how you do it. Or in my work with women who blah, 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 I often find that, etc., etc. And you can put a little bit more detail in there. But that's why we did that exercise. The superpower, the what problem you solve and what's unique about you, really was to get you to kind of focus your thoughts on, well, what phrasing could I be using for this? What is it that I actually need to get across in a very, very short space? So I'm going to jump onto the slides now. We've got a few this week. Where is it? There we go. Oh no, I've got to share, haven't I? Yes, I have. There we go. Okay. There we go. Can you all see that? Yeah, good. So how to structure a press release. So just to avoid confusion, you only really need one press release. You know, there are times when you might need to do new ones, but your master press release really is a document that announces who you are, what you do, why what you offer matters, and how to get hold of you. So it's a summary, really. It's a bit like a CV, but it's written in a much more dynamic way. And we'll look at how that works. It's not like a CV. That's untrue, but it works a bit like a CV that you would send to journalists, because it basically says, this is who I am and this is what's unique about me. And we'll be doing that shortly. It is only worth creating a new press release if you have something new to announce. So if you were to launch a radical new service, or a book, or a podcast, or a campaign, or if you did your own survey, I would say, if you really, really are serious about getting PR, doing your own survey is a really good idea, because if you can produce your own statistics saying, you know, I surveyed over 1,000 women or men, or whatever, and found this to be true, or actually the government is completely wrong and this is the truth about this situation, that can get you so much press. So that is very worth doing if you want to do it. However, it does cost, and you usually need a marketing person to help you do that. And I'm not a marketing person, so I'm just telling you about that. Yeah, or you might have a really interesting, another reason for doing a press release would be if you had a really interesting case study who perhaps is very relevant to something that's happening in the news right now, or perhaps your own story. But your master press release, just going back to your master press release, that is something that you always have, that is always ready to send out at any opportunity. It's your who you are and what you do. Next. Yeah, so when you don't have news to announce, but you simply wish to pitch an idea to a journalist, you simply paste your master press release into every pitch email that you send out. And we're going to go through how to write a pitch email shortly. This means that you can respond very quickly to news hooks and press opportunities that you may spot. So last week we talked about news hooks and press opportunities, where, in Helen's case, it would be latest statistics about NEETs, not in education, employment, or training. So Helen, you would want to have a press release about you ready to send to any journalist who you're pitching to say, I have a very interesting take on this whole problem of young people. I have, expertise, blah, 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 blah. And you paste that press release in there so that they've got all the information they need about you. Does that make sense? How you use a press release, or your master press release? Good. It's also worth noting, and I know one or two of you are in these groups. There are groups like Lightbulb. Are you aware of Lightbulb on Facebook? There's a few of them. There's a few of these groups where you can connect with journalists, entrepreneurs. I think, Sandy, you're in Lightbulb, aren't you? Yeah. You've got quite a few opportunities through Lightbulb, haven't you?
I've had one really good opportunity on Lightbulb, but that opportunity then led to other things, which is, I think, the key to it. I mean, I know there are people who sit on Lightbulb and just watch it, what's coming through, and I don't have time for that.
Well,
So
no, who does?
often it's just by chance that I come across something that is pertinent.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's very tempting to throw yourself at everything, and you can't.
No, and also sometimes it's not useful to. It's not always useful, to just go for every opportunity that you think, oh, I match that. Oh, I've just divorced. Oh, I have elderly parents, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It might actually not serve you. It's worth just stopping and thinking, is it worth doing this?
Yeah, what's in it for me on this?
It does give you experience of being interviewed by a journalist and potentially getting in the press, so you've at least had that experience, so that's no bad thing. But I know people who I've seen them, they go for every opportunity, they're in the press all the time, but it's not often talking about what they do in their business. So it's like, is that really useful? Not always. But yes, so Lightbulb is a group, just to finish. Lightbulb is a group where you pay a certain monthly fee, and it means that you see when journalists are looking for case studies or looking for comment, looking for experts. I do it all the time when I'm looking for an expert. I did one last week where I was looking for parents of children who struggled to get work experience, because I'm working with a charity that deals with that. And, I was inundated with requests from parents to who wanted to comment, even though it wasn't relevant to their business, just because they felt strongly about it. But it is worth joining Lightbulb, even if you just join for a month and see what you think. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because if you have a press release, when you see an opportunity that's relevant to you and your business, you are ready to send that press release to them. You don't have to spend ages writing an email saying, I'm this, I do that, this is my expertise, blah, blah, blah. You've got it all ready to send, and it's really useful to have that. And getting there first means you often get the opportunity, although not always. So when you're writing a press pitch, so a press pitch is basically an email. It's an email that you are sending to a journalist. I'm going to give you, I think it's next week, I'm going to give you each your own bespoke list of contacts with their email addresses that will be suited to what you particularly are aiming for. So you need to be ready to pitch to these people, and you want to send a pitch relevant, that obviously that gives you the opportunity to talk about what you do. If you don't have a story of your own, offer to provide expertise or opinion at the right moment. So, last week, I think it was, Wegovy was the jab, the weight loss jab was found to have, to not be good in terms of nutrition. I think you miss out on certain types of nutrition. That's a great opportunity, Marie, isn't it, for you to jump in and say, I'm an expert in menopausal weight loss without the jab-free way. Here's how to do it. I can provide expert comment on how to ensure that you're, properly nourished while losing weight, etc., etc. You could also submit an idea for a longer opinion piece on a story, also known as an op-ed, if you have a fresh take. But you need to have a fresh take. You can't just go, I have an opinion. It's like, is it different? Is it something you've not seen before? Is it something that's, a bit out there, a bit controversial maybe? To attract attention for the email subject line, I cannot underline how important this is, because your email subject line is what gets you through the door. It's what gets you gets a journalist to actually read your email. Your email subject line needs to be written like a journalist would write a headline. So, hang on. Did I write any examples? I thought I did. But like the real reason women can't lose weight, blah blah blah. Or oh, that's right, something like is Richie with us today? I'm not sure. I can't see her. But in Richie's case, it would be something like businesses are losing billions because they misunderstand their neurodivergent customers. You need to make it a really attention grabbing subject line and headline for your pitch. And if you're struggling to craft an engaging headline, you may not have a strong enough story or angle. It's really worth thinking about that. When you're writing your pitch, is do I really have a strong angle? What's my headline? And if there isn't a headline, a good headline, it's perhaps not the strongest pitch. So I sent you all the template and the guidance, and I'm just going to go through it with you now. Does anyone have any questions at this stage? I'm kind of just whizzing through without, yeah, everyone all right? Everyone okay? So writing a press release, first of all, you want an attention grabbing headline. As I just said, what are you announcing? So if it's your master press release, you're announcing you are saying, the weight loss expert who has the answer to, the natural answer to Wegovy, or, Amanda, I'm trying to think what yours would be. The hypnotherapist, I'm the hypnotherapist relieving female business owners of overthinking, for example, something like that. Sandy, what would yours be? Because it's quite tricky, isn't it? Because yours is colour, but it's personal styling. It's about confidence. Have you got any ideas for a headline, Sandy? Something attention grabbing. It would need to be, it could be something like what women are getting wrong about colour and confidence when choosing how to dress in the office, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to sort of talk about maybe how many unworn things do you have in your closet, as sort of
That's great. That's brilliant.
Because that's it.
In my case, about half the things in my closet. Honestly, I am not exaggerating. I can't even open the damn thing. It's full of clothes I don't wear, couldn't fit into. But that's a really great headline. How many unworn outfits are in your closet? The stylist, the personal stylist with insight into women's true, the key to women's true styling confidence, or something like styling is probably not the best word, but looking great, looking confident, or something like that. Your subhead would then expand on the headline. So if your headline is got to be relatively brief, because it has to be, really, you want to get it onto 2 lines, your headline, and it's tends to be in a higher point size than the rest, so you can only get so many words into that. Your subhead expands on it. It kind of moves that point on, the point that you've made in your headline, you move it on. Or you maybe say with or you could say something like, with X years advising blah blah blah, here's what you need to know, something like that. Opening paragraph, a punchy message stating why this is relevant. This is where you get your statistics, your studies, a newsy hook. You capture attention and include all the key facts in this opening paragraph. So who you're talking about, what type of woman or man or person, you're talking about, you know, that's what cohort is affected by what you're talking about. What studies, sorry, what point are you making? What big point are you making? When has it happened? Is it happening now? Is it about to happen? Is it something that's long term? Where is it happening? Is it all across the country? Is it in schools? Is it in HR departments? Is it in households? Is it UK only? You don't have to say all of those things, by the way. You would just choose one of them. You would just say, you know, the you know, the blah blah affecting UK women, or etc. Why is it affecting them, and how is it affecting them? Why is the thing you're announcing affecting them, and how? It's often a good idea to then include a short quote where you can say something really clever and incisive about everything that you've summed up above. You can say, and I provide a solution. And this is the bit where you can say, you know, with X number of years, or with my background, you know, Sandy, with my background in working in the corporate sector, or Helen, you could say, with my background, you know, working in talent acquisition for, you know, for big companies like Rolls-Royce, but also in the education system, I can see how blah, 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? You hammer home your unique expertise, and how you I know you said last week you don't have all the solutions. I know you don't, but you do have insight. So don't worry about that. Just, you have insight. You know, Gwen, it would maybe be, you know, how, you know, if you're comfortable saying it as someone who was diagnosed, you know, neurodivergent later in life, I have, you know, and as a coach working with women, I have insight into how this affects them, you know.
Yeah, totally, because you can, I only ever, not only ever, but I primarily talk about my lived experience, because at the end of the day, I can only talk about, well, this is how it is for me. And especially in that, everyone's experience is different, or everyone's, you know, wherever they are on the spectrum is different as well. But yeah, so I've got to just say, well, for me, this is what I am. And also I've got like, case studies and things. But yeah, I think it's important to say, look, I went, you know, 50 odd years without knowing this.
Yeah.
And even like today, I realised something that really stuck with me a while ago. And of course, I was like, well, of course I had an affinity with that person. It's like somebody with MND, actually. There's David Niven's autobiography that had popped into my head.
Yeah.
Something that he'd written about. And it was like when he had MND and was like trapped in his body, but his mind was still...
That's interesting. That's interesting. But you know, like in the case of your press release...
Yeah, and it's like, oh, of course I had a relation with that.
In the case of your press release, it's important that you get in the fact that you have this personal insight, because a lot of people who work in this sector will not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the key thing, is you are saying,
I studied it, got the qualifications, but not the lived experience.
I've not just studied it, I've lived it, so I can give such great insight. So it's really important to put that fact in.
Yes, thank you.
Bullet point, if you have other points to make. So Amanda, for example, when you were talking about, you know, the different problems that you help women unblock or unlock or solve, or whatever word we're using, it's things like perfectionism, it's things like overthinking. What was the other one? There was another one. Perfectionism, overthinking, anxiety.
Perfectionism, overthinking, people pleasing.
People pleasing. Okay, bullet points would be great for that bit. Great for that. So if you feel that you're in your press release, you're having to kind of reduce what you do too much, the bullet points is the bit where you can say that you can comment on, or you're an expert in, or you treat women for blah 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 blah. That's a great place to do that.
Yeah.
And then the about section at the bottom is where you can go to town a bit, really, on your background. This is the bit where, you know, you've had to kind of be really concise in your description of yourself up until this point, but in the about section, you can say what your background is, what qualifications you have. Obviously, you're not going to list every A level, but you're going to say, you know, that you've trained in hypnotherapy, or that you've, you know, qualified as a coach, or you've got this background in science, or in, you know, technology, or whatever it is that you have that qualifies you, perhaps more than other people, to talk about this particular thing. This is where it comes in. It's also really important to talk about previous media coverage. You don't list every single one, but you'd give a range. You know, if you've been in Red Magazine and the Daily Telegraph, and also Forbes, you know, you'd just have from blah to blah to blah. You wouldn't put every single one in. And it's really important here to include your contact details, a link to your website, your socials. I mean, not every single one, but maybe the main one that you use. And also details of resources. So you would say, for further information, contact link to your website, and list of resources available. So, you know, you might have photos, you might have case studies, you might have research results. We'll talk next week about your you know, your press pack, you know, all the stuff that you can put into a media pack, which some people have. People who do a lot of PR, you know, their own PR, will have a press pack. It's not essential. It is absolutely not essential, but people ask me about it, so I talk about it. But the most important thing is to have a really good press release. And we will go on to, you know, we'll be doing them in time for next week's session. Yes, we will. So here is an example of a pitch. So the pitch, as I said earlier, is the email that you write to the journalist. So you would have already done a bit of research on the publication. You know, if you're pitching to City AM, I don't really know City AM. I have to admit, it's not my field. But if you're writing to City AM, it's a good idea to know, well, what kind of content do they have that's relevant to me? Is it relevant to me at all? You might be writing to, you know, a completely different market, but you need to be aware of, well, what kind of content do they have where I could see myself slotting in. So here's an example to City AM. Hi, Sarah. I noticed you referenced burnout in your recent piece about employee retention. This is exactly the problem I've noticed in my recent clients. I'm getting in touch because we offer X solutions specifically designed, blah, blah, blah. And you basically say, this is why I'm so qualified to talk about this subject. You would then, you know, maybe you've included some really great statistics in your press release, or some interesting facts, and then you'd put them into your pitch. Don't be afraid to repeat information from your press release in your pitch. In fact, if you've got really, really strong information in your press release, you should repeat it in your pitch, but keep it brief. So you just pick out the best bits. So it would be a statistic, what it's costing the business world, what your solution offers. And then you could list the things that you could do. I could give you an interview. I could offer you an interview with a case study. I could give you my thoughts on a similar subject. So that's an example of a pitch. It's you know, you write it in a quite conversational way. You don't need to be formal. But I think the really important thing is to get to the point quickly, be attention grabbing, and don't insult the journalist by not having had a quick look at their publication and what they write, you know, because it goes down a storm if you've read something they've written and you go, actually, I could tell you more about this, or I'm really knowledgeable about this area of things. Here's another one, just to really bore you. Hello, health features editor of the Telegraph. I noticed that worker retention is a problem often mentioned in the Telegraph. It really is. Boy, do they bang on about this. Half of millennials say that burnout is driving them to reconsider their career choice, and businesses are struggling to retain their staff or promote talent to management roles as a result. Burnout is a serious problem. It's costing the UK economy, blah, blah. And then, as a burnout expert with widespread experience, I would love to be interviewed. This is a really brief one, isn't it? Really super brief. But sometimes you can be brief. You can get straight to the point. What else did I need to say? Said that. I was just going to talk through journalist call outs, and I think I've already mentioned this, how handy it is to have a master press release for journalist call outs on sites like Lightbulb. It's also worth knowing that journalists in a hurry will often use social media to find quote experts to quote and case studies using the hashtag journo request. Again, being used to summarizing what you do and having a press release ready will really help you when you're contacting these journalists who are in a hurry. They'll pick you rather than another expert in your field because you're much clearer about your expertise. Case studies are very important. I think I've talked about this before. It's really great if you've got case studies who are happy to be identified, who are happy to be, to be included in articles. Journalists often want case studies if they're writing about a subject, say if it's neurodivergence in the workplace, they wouldn't just want to interview Richie, they'd also want to interview, maybe a manager in the workplace who's worked with her and has found it really beneficial, maybe to understand better how neurodivergence affects your experience of the workplace. But you'd also want to interview one or maybe two people who've themselves experienced the workplace as neurodivergent people and have found it a real struggle because of, the processes or the lighting or the noise or whatever it is that makes it difficult for them to feel comfortable in the workplace and be able to function. So case studies on your subject are very, very helpful for getting you in the press. Sometimes, when I've been trying to help people get press and I've contacted editors on their behalf, their immediate response is, this is really interesting. Do you have case studies? So it's very important to know this. Always respond as quickly as you can and don't forget to attach your press release so they know you're the real deal. Even if you're responding a few hours after the fact, they may not have found what they're looking for. This is often the case, that you get inundated. I've done press call outs on Lightbulb where I've been absolutely inundated with people saying, hello, this is me. Hello, yes, I'm relevant to what you're looking for. But sometimes they've not fully read what I've said in the call out. They don't quite match. They sort of match. But there's also things to consider, like sometimes publications want a range of experts. They want different voices. They don't just want one. They might want to look at diversity, for example. That might really matter to them to have ethnic diversity within their, so there's all kinds of things that can affect whether or not you're too late for a press opportunity. So I would say, don't go thinking, oh, that was 8 hours ago, they'll have already been inundated. Go for it anyway. You've got your press release ready. You don't have to spend hours on it. Contact them and you may just be perfect for what they're looking for. Also, if they like the sound of you, the journalist will keep your details for future reference. So it's never a wasted effort. I think that's it for today. Does any of that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? Because I ran through quite a lot there. What about the press release? does everyone feel confident about writing their own press release? What is there anything that's troubling you? You're pulling a face there, Helen. Is there something that's worrying you?
Oh no, I'll give it a go. I just don't feel like I've got a lot to say yet. But yeah, of course I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, just take the burnout one and use that really as a template, if you like. You know, match what you would want to say, you know, in terms of the amount of space given. The only thing that's not on that press release is bullet points, but not everybody wants or needs bullet points. I've kept that in as an option for people who, you know, maybe need the chance to have, you know, multiple offerings. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see people's comments. Yeah, has anyone, Richie, Richie, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah. So I gave it a go last night writing the press release, but I think for me, I must be a blabbermouth. It seems to always be too long.
That's normal, Richie. All my press releases start off as 2 pages at least. It's really hard. It's really hard to drill down, and we can work on that. Send it over anyway. I'll have a look.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it over.
You are the first in this. So well done. Get brownie points. It's hard. It's really hard to summarize and to keep it brief. But I can promise you that if you send a 2-page press release, no journalist will want to read that. They just won't read it. So you have to be brief. You have to get it down to, you know, if they're interested in what you have to say, and if they're interested in I want to understand more about her world, they can go to your LinkedIn, they can go to your website, they can see what you've posted about this subject before, and learn more, you know, about, well, you know, what is this expertise she has? What is this world that she works in that I don't know about? And they'll learn more. But the press release really is doing the job of just going, you need to know about me because I've got this amazing expertise and I'm telling you about this particular thing I can comment on better than anyone else. That's what you're doing. So you don't want to overwhelm them with too much information because that just won't serve you. So, you know,
helpful.
Keep it brief, but to the point. It's really got to do the job. It's got to do the job of being clear. Anyone else got questions? Anyone got questions about how to write a pitch email? No.
I have done some before. I was in a small kind of PR group thing a while ago, so I've done some. It's just been a while, so it's more just kind of refreshing myself. But and I think for me the thing is, I liked what you said about even if you're late, because obviously if you give me a deadline, I'll always skid up to it, kind of thing, like just at the last minute. But sometimes that might not be a bad thing actually, because they might see yours and it stands out because it's not amongst the rest. So that you know. But like I think, like you said, if it's something unique, then you might not get that one, but they might keep you in mind for something else. So
that's it. But also some journalists are writing a piece that very day. Some of them have got a month-long deadline. I'm often given a month to write something, and so I start looking for case studies the day I'm given the brief. But I might not pin down the case studies or the experts for a few days.
Right.
So, you know, it really does depend which publication it's for and how urgent. It'll usually say in the call out urgent, you know, somebody urgently, then that means probably they've got to turn it around within the day or by tomorrow. So they're in a big hurry. Whereas, you know, if I'm writing it for Good Housekeeping, I've probably got 3 weeks, you know.
Yeah. The other thing that occurred to me, actually a bit like last week, I think it was when you were talking to someone else. I think you were talking to Sandy about the outfits, and I was like, oh, I've got an analogy around that, because, you know, we carry around old identities, and we, you know, it's like, well, how many old identities that you used to be or that you thought you were, are you still carrying around like those beliefs? And then they're like Russian dolls inside of us, kind of thing. It's actually not that person anymore. So.
That's so interesting. That is so true. I love that analogy. I wonder.
And then it's weighing us down as well because we're still kind of operating from those old operating systems or those old programs as well. So there's something for me around the master press release that needs to contain that and kind of,
Yeah,
that's what I help people to unpack and go, oh,
yeah,
actually, why am I still acting and behaving and believing and repeating these patterns of this? It's often their younger self, but often a younger self can be 25 or 45 or whatever. And when something happened and we got told that one thing and we believed it, and then we started, kind of behaving that way. So
it's fun. It's funny, isn't it? Because my mum, who's 94, said, even at 94, you're still the 15-year-old girl. She's still in there, which I
yeah,
love. I think that's incredible. I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking, but it's also really lovely. But
yeah,
it's like when you're wearing clothes, I've got clothes. I have still got the outfit I was wearing when I met my husband, which was 32 years ago. I've still got the outfit. And every now and again, I'll put the t-shirt on. And
yeah,
it just doesn't look right on a 64-year-old woman. It's a really nice t-shirt, but I was a young woman then with a different body, but I had a different vibe. So it's like, well, there's so much you can say about that, Sandy, about the whole thing of, well, how do we adapt that look that we loved, that was us back then? Well, how do we translate that into the us of now? And how do we do it for formal occasions, and how do we do it for less formal occasions?
Yeah, I mean, I not often talk to people about often when we get to a certain point in life, we've left little bits of ourselves along the wayside. And, it's almost like, we're conditioned, our kids give us messages about, oh, mum, are you really wearing that? Our
Oh,
partners do it,
yeah. Yeah.
colleagues do it, all sorts. So you end up to be this sort of watered down version of who you were. And I think part of my job is to get you to go and pick up some of those bits along the way and bring them back
Oh,
to the party.
that's so interesting. I mean, if you don't already, Sandy, you should so blog about this because it's so interesting. And I just think a lot of women, especially as we get older, would really relate to that. But like the psychology, I think you just mentioned the word psychology. I think the psychology of how we dress and as we age it's really important that you get that word into your press release. I'm sure you would anyway, but it's more than just styling advice. Do you know what I mean? There's so much more. It goes into things in far more depth, and it's far more about identity, isn't it? And loss, but also that thing when women regain their fashion confidence at a certain point after they've been through the horrors of midlife. What a thing that is. So you can harness that and that joy and that positivity, which I
yeah.
think you exude, to be honest, because every time I see you, you're in orange or red or pink or vivid colours.
Yeah, and
Can
there's
I?
something oh, sorry, I was just going to say there was something you were saying there about that, like keeping that old outfit because it's the emotional thing. Because there's certain things you could go through your wardrobe and you go, well, that was a, whatever, Asda t-shirt or something. I don't really care about that. It didn't have any attachment, but it's the things that have got the attachment to the identity or to the place and time or whatever that we go, oh, I know I can't really fit into it anymore or whatever, but I just can't let it go because, it could, it's like music or anything like that. It's like that nostalgia that takes you immediately back to
Yes.
where and what you were doing and,
Yeah.
the experiences.
But meanwhile, it's cluttering up your wardrobe, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
not a good thing. Anyone else wanted to comment on?
Sorry, Ellen wanted to say something.
Yeah, it's kind of related to everything everyone else is saying. Like Amanda, when you said about the clothes, we're doing watered down versions of ourselves, and it's also where do we go and buy clothes now at our age? Because we're too old for certain places, then too young for others. But then even the very piece of when you get into a certain age, it's we don't. Maybe it's just me not wanting to put myself out there as much as I used to.
Mm,
Because even the very fact that we're talking about being in the press and all of that, and I was said it on the first one, it's a bit scary, it still is. And it's just, I don't know, we've been conditioned maybe of women of a certain, not a certain age of our generation. You just keep yourself more in the background and keep quiet, don't put yourself out there, and
Hmm.
you open yourself to criticism. And that's what all these thoughts that keep going on in my head. But then if we don't speak, how's anyone ever going to know?
Yeah. And the good thing about that is that, like you say, everyone has an aspect to that. Everyone has an experience of that. We always sort of think, oh, well, they're okay, they're confident, or they're blah blah blah. But actually, they're going through that as well. So you keep that in mind as well. And actually, if you don't speak, you're not letting someone else who feels like you recognise that as well. You're giving them the chance to recognise that and to have that experience and go and feel less alone because you've said how you feel.
But the other thing, Helen, and I think I possibly said this last week, but it's really important to remember this, is if you don't put yourself forward and say what you've got to say, you're depriving people of that expertise, which you may have really unique insights that nobody else has. Well, you will, because you're you, not just because of the experience and work that you've had, but also because of who you are and how you see the world. So you will be able to give insights that nobody else can give. And so however much it feels, I hate the phrase imposter syndrome. In fact, some people say it doesn't even exist and we should stop saying it. But, the notion that, I don't want to make myself visible. I don't have anything to say. Who am I to speak up? All my life I've been told to pipe down. Whatever it is that's holding you back, you have to fight that. You really do. I have to say, turning 60 somehow takes that thing away. It takes that fear away. So you can look forward to that in a long time.
I take on that as well, because actually that's what I help people to see, is that the thing that you think you've got to hold back on or you've got to hide, actually that's the thing you are an expert in. Like, you're far from the imposter. You're actually the expert in whatever that is for you. You just have to see yourself as that, or trust that you sharing things in your way influences, helps, inspires somebody else.
Yeah, because that level of compassion that you have would feed into the advice that you would give a young person, I imagine, who's looking for work. Whereas they might go to a careers advisor who doesn't give a damn, or just gives them really crap advice, just sees them as a a tick box exercise. I imagine you would not see them that way, and would have a very different approach because of how you are and what you maybe have been through yourself. Because that all matters. It's the same with you, Marie. I don't fully know your story of how you came to lose the vast amount of weight. It was a lot, wasn't it? And congratulations, I have to say. Absolutely brilliant. But and I don't know how you did it either. In fact, would you tell us how you did it?
Sure. Basically, I ate more and way less.
Wow. So how does that work? Is it just understanding what it is you should be eating?
It's understanding what your biology's doing. It's all to do with hormones. When you get over 50, you have to know what your body is doing. And women don't know what the bodies are doing. And this is what my mission is now, is to teach women what the bodies are doing at stages of their lives, so that it's even like energy, it's your sleep, it's just absolutely everything, your mental health. And it's what you put in and on your body that makes a difference. So, reducing sugar as much as you possibly can, because it's a poison. With the loss of estrogen, your body reacts differently to carbohydrates, so it starts to store it as fat in places that it never used to, but you've noticed. Progesterone has dropped, so that's the calming hormone. It's a full on. It's not just about. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. So basically, I was pre-diabetic, obese, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I didn't want the meds, so I became my own research study. And I just totally changed my lifestyle. And there's this sort of mental thing about change. People don't like change, they're scared of change. But sometimes, the way that I look at it is this the pain of staying the same is worse than the pain of change. And we're not eating the whole elephant in the room. It's small steps, because at the end of the day, if you try and do everything at once, you'll not achieve it. So, I lost that weight over almost like a 12-month period, and I reversed all my blood markers within 6 months.
So all of this needs, obviously not all of it, but a lot of what you've just said needs to be in your press release. So, how quickly you lost the weight, how you did it, but also that conversation, you've got a fantastic conversational style, and you need to be that conversational in your press release, like the phrasing that you use. I'll send you the transcript from today.
Okay.
Thanks. That was really helpful last week. Yeah.
Good. So you can see what you said.
It's so interesting. Three Amandas here.
That's the problem. I forget what I say.
Often what we say when we're not editing ourselves that's where the gold is. When I interview people to help them get in the press, I interview them and record the interview, and then I will repeat back phrases that they've said, and they've said, "Did I say that?" It'll be something really brilliant, really, really like a gem, and they'll be like, "Did I actually say that?" Because when you're not conscious of it, when you're just talking like you are to us now, you're much more, I don't know, that's where the gold is. It really is. It's fantastic because you're in the zone, you're in the flow of it, and it's fantastic. That's when the beauty comes out. So don't be afraid to don't feel like you have to be formal in your press release.
I know I do. That's my legal background. I think I have to be formal, and yeah.
I mean, you're being formal in the sense that you're not saying in it and that kind of thing, you're which you wouldn't anyway. But what I'm saying is in the quote bit, be as unguarded as you just were,
I need to record myself and then listen.
Like I say, you'll get the transcript.
Thank you.
Because what we want in this press release is for you to say something that nobody else is saying. And journalists will be getting press releases from women who do what you do. That you're not the only one, that. So you need to stand out. You need to say something a bit extraordinary. So they think, oh, I like the sound of her. She sounds a bit outspoken, which you are, and that's great. But, you want the journalist to think, I want to interview her. I don't want to interview the other boring ones. I like the sound of her. So, do not hold back from being not necessarily controversial, but just be say something, something.
Disruptive. Yeah, I like the fact that did you say you've got a lawyer's background as well?
Yeah, I used to manage international law firms. So I'm not a lawyer myself, but I managed international law firms. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a unique blend, a unique take there on with that.
I think that's why I sort of have to dot every I and cross every T.
Yeah.
I mean,
you have a perspective that other people don't have as well. So yeah.
And that's good, but blend that with the unguarded, the way you speak. When you're not being lawyery, when you're being just really outspoken and quite blunt about it, because that's what people need. Blunt advice about weight loss. That's what everybody really needs, isn't it? The truth.
Yeah. The truth. I mean, that's one of my sort of strap lines. I give it to you in plain English. There's no fluff.
Yeah.
But how refreshing is that? That's fantastic. Although I don't suppose everybody loves hearing it, but it's true. Isn't it? Anyone, Amanda? Do you feel a bit less? You were feeling quite flat, you said, after trying to write your superpower and so on.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just settling on what I've done for that now, and I can build on that. So yeah, no, I feel better about that. And yeah, I actually feel quite, when I've got the time, now the kids have finally gone back to school. Yeah, I feel quite confident about being able to put something together for the master one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just don't overthink it, guys. Have a first go, send it over, and I'll give you feedback. And sometimes it might take 2 or 3 goes to really refine it. But yeah, like I say, base it on the one I sent you, which it does the job. Do you know what I mean? It does the job. But and don't be afraid to say something a bit surprising. Or say, Helen, you can say the government has got it all wrong about NEETs, blah, 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 blah. Marie, you can say, the weight loss industry is telling lies. Or, do you know what I mean? You can say things like that. It's fine, because it's true. And I know as a lawyer, you're probably like, oh, I can't say that. I'll get liable. But, you're
Oh, no, I will say that because they are lying. Because at the end of the day, if they weren't lying, people would lose weight, and they don't. I'm sorry, lady, I have to go. I've got another one at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, you go, you go.
So
You go.
lovely to see you. I'll
Yeah.
see you next week.
Okay, see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Sandy, I just wanted to say I'm really loving the deeper psychology side of things. And
Yeah, so that the styling that I do is actually loosely based on Carl Jung's archetypes.
Oh well.
wow. That's amazing.
So it's not fluffy. It is about how we feel and what people think of us when they first meet us and how we can align the two things.
That's so interesting. I mean, you would probably want to put the thinking woman's personal stylist or something like that, because that won't be everyone's experience, will it?
No, I mean, and the thing is, people often use like a personal stylist in a shop or whatever, and all they're doing is looking at your body and thinking, okay, what have I got in store that will fit you? Whereas I'm actually thinking about, how do you want to show up? How do you want to be perceived? What are the messages you want to send? How can we bring those together?
So you need to get this across.
I know. So because it's the thing is, people just think that like personal styling is, what you look like.
But you can say that in your quote. You can say people think personal styling is but my approach is to go far deeper, understand the woman with, blah blah blah. You could be outspoken about that. People get it. People misunderstand, or use me. While we're on this course, use me to write this and get it right.
Okay.
We'll hone it until it's perfect.
Thank you so much.
Any further queries, comments?
No, I love that about the archetypes, because it's something I play with as well. But I was just going to say, for anybody that does feel stuck, I recommend, you talked about, using that conversational style. I recommend speaking it into a Google Doc or whatever, and just, let yourself riff and just say it, and then you can go back in and edit it and tidy it up. But like you say, that's when you'll capture the gold and the nuggets kind of thing, because you're not editing yourself sitting at a PC or a laptop. So that's my tip.
As an extra comment to that, I would say do it to someone. So, it could be your mum, it could be your best friend, it could be a husband, it could be whoever, the dog. But no, not the dog. It needs to be somebody who would be interested and would go, tell me what you do. Tell me what it is you do. Tell me how you make that happen. Tell me why you're different. Get them to just keep asking you those kind of questions. Why is that unique? I don't understand. How do you do that? How does that work? Just keep asking you nosy questions, like a lawyer would, and get you to really nail what it is that you do. What does that mean? Journalists often say, "What
factor sort of thing?"
In an interview, I'll often say, "What does that mean?" If somebody uses jargon, I'll say, they'll use a long phrase that is actually sounds almost like gobbledygook. They say, "Okay, what does that actually mean?" So if you've got any phrases like that in your press release, you need to find a simpler way to say them, because I know we all work in complicated ways and we have depth of experience and depth of knowledge, but ultimately you just want to get a journalist who might know nothing about your area of expertise at all. You want to get them to understand it quickly.
So you've really raised a valid point there, because a lot of what I write is for my target audience, which is going to be chief HR officers, or heads of global talent or whatever. So I always write with them in mind, because they know because that's my focus. So really, I've got to change it to be a bit more, not basic, that's the wrong word, a bit more like, I actually don't know anything about you, your industry, or.
Absolutely, right.
Okay.
Right. Think of someone in your life who doesn't know anything about HR, maybe
Most people.
a family member, or, somebody, or a friend, and then write it with them in mind. Don't write it for somebody in HR, write it for somebody who really knows very little about that area. Okay. Right, it's gone 1 o'clock, so we're going to finish.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Lovely to see you all, and I look forward to receiving your press releases in the next few days. Good
And
luck.
sorry, Amanda, for using your name.
Stealing my
I
identity.
couldn't get it to change on here, but it's because the link that you put in the WhatsApp
I
group.
think they're individual links that came through Zoom, yeah, when you registered.
Yeah,
The main thing is we had you in the room, Sandy, and that's what matters.
fabulous. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Up England
Bye.
tonight.
Bye.
What?
Up England tonight.
Oh, yes, it's
Oh, yeah.
tonight, isn't it? Oh, I've got to go out, damn. Okay, yes. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.